So I'm just going to cut to the chase, and I'm going to tell you about God, because everything leads back to God. And please don't switch it off now. Please listen to what I'm going to say. I think it's important that you listen to what I want to say. I'm just going to give you my opinion about what God is and what it means to us and what it can mean to the whole world and the effect that it can have on the world if we try to understand this thing that people call God. Because I think it's real, I think it's there, and I'm going to explain why, and I'm going to explain how it works from my own interpretation based on my own life experience. And you know, the best thing about my opinion is you don't have to believe it, and you don't have to go along with it. You don't have to fight about it, you don't have to kill anyone for it. I just want you to hear it. So please don't touch that dial, even if you don't believe in God, particularly if you don't believe in God. And if you are devout and you have your own ideas, please be prepared to consider somebody else's. So I'm just going to show you a little bit of God right now. Yeah, I hope you can see it. I can't exactly see what I'm focused on now, but it's something pretty beautiful, and it's not even halfway near the beauty that you can find in this world. It's not even halfway near the beauty that you can find inside yourselves, inside of people that you love. It even exists inside of people that you hate. And love and hate are a part of God, the same as good and evil is a part of God, the same as you are a part of God, and I am a part of God, and everything that you see around us is a part of God. So the question we need to ask ourselves is, what does God mean? And I'll tell you what it means to me. It's basically the thing that holds everything else together, and in fact it is everything. And everything around us, everything inside you, everything all over the world, I mean, it's scientifically acknowledged to be comprised of basically the same atoms, yeah, protons and electrons. Whatever you get inside those, you know, they're all colliding in the universe, just crashing together, and sometimes they stop and they make mess, and that mess exists within a field. I mean, there has to be something sticking you to the ground, which we call gravity in our best known terms, and it exists within a field that has been that was identified by a man called Professor Higgs, and that's called the Higgs field. And recent scientific developments indicate that the Higgs field is a provable hypothesis, and it does exist. Now, if that is the place where all the atoms live, and that is the place in between the atoms, and that is what gives us any kind of mass and any kind of existence, then for me it's a logical assumption to say that that is where your emotions live, and that is where your thoughts live, and that is where love lives, and that is where hate lives. And you know, it must be in there somewhere. The consciousness of all things is therefore interlinked. It must be. It stands to scientific reasoning that the emotions that we feel live somewhere. They exist in a certain space. You can't just say that they exist in tissue in your brain, because then you need to consider what the tissue of your brain is made of. I mean, we know as well, scientific investigations point towards memory being stored in fact in any tissue within the body, not just the brain. People report memories from previous lives, which are sometimes fairly well verifiable and sometimes not. And you know, people believe in a thing called reincarnation. Reincarnation is said to be a process of the soul being born again in different bodies, you know. And for me, you know, all of these kind of theories can be combined, you know. These theories that have existed since the beginning of time, since men were able to conceive of anything, people have believed in a God, people have believed in a higher power. And how can we say that they've been wrong all this time, and now in this tiny little piece of history that modern man has inhabited, and even in the last 200 years or whatever, we've come up with new scientific theories that seem to be provable, you know, as if to say the events of your life and the coincidences you've experienced, and, you know, the instances where you felt like your fate was written, as if to say that that's not evidence, because that's not provable. Well, it happened to you, and if you remember it happening, I think that constitutes proof. So, you know, when you start to realise that everything in life is not explainable, and certain theories that have existed that are not provable are actually valid theories as much as, you know, any scientific theory is, then you can start to open your mind to the possibility that the processes of life that science has explained so well are in fact the work of God, you know. And just because science has bestowed a new language upon these events, a language that is more easy to understand and easier to measure, easier to quantify, doesn't mean that it's actually explaining anything different that had not been explained by the sages and the wise men and the prophets of years before. So it doesn't really matter what way you look at it, you just have to understand that we're all explaining the same thing. So those people that do believe in God, you know, which is purely a word that we use in the English language to describe this thing, yeah, as I've just hypothesized, some scientists call it the Higgs field, yeah, George Lucas called it the Force, you know, many other ancient narratives have had all sorts of different names for it. The major religions have many different names for it, God, Jehovah, Elohim, Allah, yeah, you know, Jah. There's just so many things. Some people call it Mother Nature, some people call it fate, some people call it destiny, some people call it chance, luck, whatever, you know. Everybody's got a way to explain something, because that's what we do as people. That's what we have to do, because we can't understand it unless we label it, you know. That's why we have language, you know. There's communication greater than language, but language is our best bet at the moment as human beings. This is basically yeah, the best way that we've found so far. So we're using all these different languages, including science, including spirituality, including intuition, and we're interpreting the events of our lives in some way. And I just think that it's quite clear that we're all doing the same thing, and we're all being governed by the same forces, and the force is greater than you or I. The force is greater than concrete walls. It's greater than numbers on a computer screen. It's greater than anything. It's, you know, it's always been here. You know, the notion that it was made by a man with a wave of the hand is a ridiculous one, and the notion that it popped into space from nothing is also equally ridiculous, I think. Alright, one of those theories may be correct, but we've got no way of ever substantiating that, you know. We can speculate, we can hypothesize, and to an extent we will come closer to the truth, and we should never ever stop doing that. But my feeling is that by learning that we're all talking about the same thing, we can actually put an end to you know, lots of the conflicts in the world, and lots of the control, and lots of the oppression. And there are people that don't want that, you know. There are people that want to keep us divided. So we've got Islam, and we've got Christianity, and we've got Judaism, you know. We've got all these religions, and the purpose of them, really, to some people, perhaps not the people who originally initiated these movements, but the people that kind of run things in the world now, the people that own the banks, the people that own the media, the people that own you, they don't want us to realise that we all believe the same thing, or that, you know, we're all subject to the same thing, however we choose to describe it. They don't want us to know that, and that's why modern society is the way it is, with these different religions and wars and propaganda and fear, you know. And if we came to this beautiful realisation that we are all singing from the same hymn sheet, everything would change, you know. Everything would change, you know. There are some more tangible actions that we can take in society, which hopefully I will find the inspiration to describe in another video. But that's the basic gist of it, you know. God is in everything. God is everywhere. God is just a word that we use to describe this force that gives us life. Those that believe in it can feel it communicating with them. They can feel it talk to them. Some people hear the voice of God. I've heard the voice of God, not in words, but in other forms of communication, and I firmly believe that I was being communicated to by God. And if it feels like it's a man directly using language to to commune with you, then it's because you give it that interpretation. This is what I believe anyway. This is what I believe happened to me, is that my human brain with human education and human lifestyle used a human method of interpreting my connection with the universe, and I feel as though that is God sending me messages, you know. And a lot of people around the world have believed that same thing. A lot of people have been called crazy for believing that. A lot of people have been worshipped for believing that, you know. Men like Jesus, Muhammad, Abraham, you know, whoever, all the old prophets, John Lennon, Nikola Tesla, George Orwell, you know, whoever, Nostradamus maybe, I don't know, just so many people. Socrates, you know, Socrates was one of the first people to attempt to tell the truth, and he was one of the first people murdered for his beliefs as well. And it's happened to so many other historical figures, because again there's a small group of people that run the world the way it is because they can do whatever they want with the world the way it is. That's a slightly different subject, but you know, the way to overcome this is purely to let yourself let yourself understand and free your mind from its constraints, and just feel that you are a part of everything and everything is a part of you, you know. As I was saying, lots of men have said this before, and lots more will say it again. And what's so interesting is that so many people are thinking this way right now. You know, you're getting people like Russell Brand talking about some beautiful stuff. I'm not sure if he's all real, to be honest. He's not going far enough, so whether or not there's a bit of double psychology going on there. But you don't want to listen to my paranoid fantasies if you're still being good enough to listen to my opinion on God after 13 minutes exactly. So yeah, people have been speaking about this for many years, and they've either been silenced or their message has been subjugated by the said same people that I have referred to, sometimes known as them or they, the man, the Illuminati, you know, all these bullshit things that we're given little ideas to, you know, make us run off into paranoid fantasy about you know. But there's an element of truth in there, you know, if you could just understand the simplicity of it, and if they could also understand the simplicity of what I'm saying, because they could have as equally good a life under this paradigm than they do now. Not quite as exhilarating, but you know, yeah, everyone's waking up to this idea, you know. Everybody can feel it inside them. Everybody's learning that the meanings associated to this word coincidence are, you know, becoming less concrete, and some things are just expressions to describe something that you can't describe. Words like coincidence, words like love, words like hatred, words like good and evil, words like God, you know, but they're just words, and as soon as you say the word, they got so many pre-associated meanings, and you can't get through to what it is. So when I say I believe in God, I believe in the universe and the interconnected nature of it all, and I believe that, you know, actions do affect others, and perhaps thoughts even affect others, and, you know, understanding the way that everything is linked could allow us to change it in some interesting ways. Certainly in the material world we could change a lot, and we could do that immediately, and it would be for the better of everybody, and we need to do it, because we might be at a fork in the road in society, where we go this way and we go towards paradise and goodness and light, or we go this way and we go into hell.